And we still need a little bit more tonight before we get into John chapter 10. But we landed last week in Ezekiel chapter 34. Ezekiel chapter 34, the nation of Israel is in ruins. They're in exile again. Ezekiel's probably about 26 or 28 years old at this time. He was supposed to be a priest. But because he's in exile, Daniel's already been in Babylon for about 8 years up to this point. Because he's in exile, he becomes a prophet. And so God uses Ezekiel to show the nation of Israel that he's in the middle of the wreckage, that he's in the middle of the rubble, and he's trying to produce, and he will produce something beautiful, that he's going to put the pieces back together, and that he is going to raise a new people. He is going to raise a new nation. He is going to do something the world has never seen before. He begins to prophesy through Ezekiel of the future coming of a shepherd. And so Ezekiel, in chapter 34, verses 1 through 16, he takes the first half and he completely calls out the Jewish leadership, the magistrates and the kings and the priests. And the high priests of the day, they were corrupt. And essentially what Jesus was telling them is that not only are they bad shepherds, but as we learned with Margaret Feinberg in the latest book, Scouting the Vine, she's interviewing a shepherd, a modern-day shepherd. And when Margaret Feinberg talks and asks her about bad sheep, she says there's no such thing as bad sheep. There's no such thing as a bad shepherd. You're either a shepherd or you're not a shepherd. You're either a shepherd or a non-shepherd. There's no such thing as a bad shepherd. Because shepherds love their sheep. Over and over and over and over in the biblical text, we see shepherds loving their sheep, loving their sheep, loving their sheep, sacrificing for their sheep, serving their sheep over and over and over again. And so he calls out the nation, the leadership of the nation of Israel, and says, you're no shepherd at all, but I will come and I will gather my sheep, and I will protect my sheep, and I will bind up my sheep, and I will feed my sheep, and I will lead my sheep to green pastures, and I will lead my sheep to waters, and I will make my sheep lie down. God, over and over again, through Ezekiel, is showing the nation of Israel that he's going to come and he's going to do something unbelievable, that there's going to be a coming shepherd. And so when Jesus shows up on the scene, John chapter 10, verse 11, he claims that he is the good shepherd. Jesus is claiming the role of the good shepherd for himself. He's claiming the role of the coming Messiah for thousands and thousands of years. The Messiah that they have been waiting for, Jesus is claiming that that is him. He's claiming that he is God in front of them in this moment. This is unbelievably provocative. Up to this point, this is the fourth time in the book of John that we see Jesus saying that he is, that I am. We see him saying that I am the bread of life. I am the living water. Earlier in John 10, he says, I am the gate. And now he says that I am the good shepherd. Jesus isn't playing around here. What is Jesus doing? Jesus begins to put the events of John chapter 9 into focus. John chapter 9. I lied, I told you to go to John chapter 10, but I really want you to go to John chapter 9. John chapter 9, verse 35. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, and when they found him, he said, do you not believe in the Son of Man? What's going on here? Let me give you a little context. I'm not going to read the entire chapter of John chapter 9. The entire chapter of John chapter 9 is one narrative. And really moving into John chapter 10, it's all one continuous narrative. It's one continuous story. Early on in John chapter 9, there's a blind man sitting on the road. If you were in the biblical times, if you were in this era in the first century, and you were blind or you had a physical ailment, it was believed that you had a physical ailment due to sin. Whether you sin or someone else in your family sinned, the fact that you were blind, something dicey went on at some point. And so they're looking, the disciples and the Pharisees, they're looking at this man blind, and what did this man do? Long story short, this is the famous passage when Jesus spits in the dirt, makes a dirt saliva mud cake, throws it on the dude's eyes, tells him to go wash in the river, go wash in the pool of Siloam. When he washes in the pool of Siloam, he comes back and immediately the man can see. And upon seeing, people look at him and say, I think that's the man who was, he looks like the man who was blind, but he can see now. He says, it is I, it is me. I was born blind, but now I can see. And they don't believe him, so they take him in front of the religious system of the day, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, in front of the Sanhedrin. And they look at this man and they say, were you not born blind? He says, I was born blind. They don't believe him. And so they bring the mom and dad, and the mom and dad says, yes, he was absolutely born blind. They said, well, who healed you? And he says, I think his name was Jesus. And then later on he says, well, I think he was a good prophet. And because this man is claiming Jesus, it says in verse 34, to this they replied, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. Standing in front of the religious system of the day, because he confesses Jesus, although he doesn't fully know him, I think his name is Jesus. I think he's some sort of prophet. Because he confesses Jesus, they throw him out. They expel him from their presence. Essentially, what they were saying is they were condemning him to death. Verse 35. Jesus heard that they had thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? Verse 36. Who is it, sir? Who is he, sir? The man asked, tell me so that I may believe in him. Verse 37. Jesus said, you have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking with you. Notice his ignorance. Who is this man? This Jesus, this person, all the way back in verse 11, he replied, the man they called Jesus. Verse 17, finally they turned to the blind man. What did you have to say about him? It was your eyes open? He said, the man replied, he is a prophet. Recognizing that was his journey. Verse 38, then the man said, Lord, I believe, and he worshipped him. He goes from saying, this man named Jesus, I think he's some sort of prophet, to saying, I believe, and he worshipped him. Anytime, at this point in Scripture, if we see something along the lines of, and he worshipped him, the scene, the picture here, is that this man, who's been blind his entire life, who's been healed, he bows down at the feet of Jesus, and he begins to worship Jesus. He recognizes who Jesus is for who Jesus is. Over and over, the picture of the shepherd in all of Scripture is simply this: I will provide. We said this last week. I will provide. I will provide. I will provide. I will provide. And my sheep trust me because they trust that I will provide. And my sheep, they know my voice and they know my name because they trust that I will provide. Because I provided yesterday and I will provide again today. Because I will provide. The Israelites, they're in the desert after being rescued from Egypt. And every single day, manna fell. This bread-like substance fell from the heavens every single day. I will provide. Notice and recognize the first song that we'll be saying tonight. The Lord's Prayer is going to be known as, it should better be called the disciples' prayer. But give us today our daily bread. Sheep recognize that on their own they absolutely cannot survive. Sheep recognize on their own, and again, the myth is that they're dumb. They're not necessarily dumb, they're just defenseless. They recognize on their own that they will absolutely die. Over and over again, the picture is, I will provide. I will provide. Jesus, to this man who's born blind, he finds himself at the feet of Jesus because Jesus provided. Verse 39, Jesus said, for judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. Here's Jesus. Oftentimes you see Jesus talking, it seems like in like cryptic language at times, right? We're doing a series this summer called Figuratively Speaking. We're going to look into the parables of Jesus, into the stories of Jesus that uses something else to describe and define something else. This is kind of one of those things here. For judgment I have come into this world, so that the blind will see, and those who see will become blind. Who's the audience? The audience here, the people who gathered here, are the religious system of the day, the religious leaders of the day, the priests, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees. The religious leaders of the day are the audience. And Jesus says, I've come so that the blind will see. He just healed the blind, who again, they think because of his sin he was blind. I will heal the blind, and that those who see will become blind. What does this mean? He explains in verse 40, some Pharisees who were with him heard him say this, and they asked, what? Are we blind too? They know Jesus is talking about them. This isn't just like this question, Jesus, what are you saying? Like, are we blind too? They're appalled. They're absolutely offended. They're like, what? You're saying that we're blind? This man was the sinner, obviously. He was the one who was blind from birth. It has nothing to do with us. We're not blind. In fact, we are the Pharisees. We have reached the heights of what it means to keep the law, for what it means to be a follower of God. And you're calling us blind? And he says, verse 41, Jesus said, if you were blind, you would not be guilty of sin. But now that you claim you can see, your guilt remains. Are you kidding me?